Hey, what's up, everybody? This is episode 7 of the Producers Hangout. I
Yep.
am Flux of fluxwithit.com, and today we are joined by the illustrious Upright, Bryce.
What's up, people? Beatmaker out of Cali, doing my thing. SoundCloud/Upright.
And then we've got Kev of Kev West Beats.
Hey, Cav here, KevWestBeats.com, hip-hop house producer from Seattle, Washington.
And then we've got Mike, Silent Cypher.
What up, guys? Mike here, patbangers.com, straight out of Germany.
And then we've got William McKnight of One Good Knob and the MachineWarehouse.com.
Well, since he said it all, then I'm William McKnight, Will, whatever. One Good Knob Sound Design. Of course, you can buy sound packs for native machines at themachinewarehouse.com.
Now, can we just take a moment and just stare at Willie's spaceship for a minute?
That's what I'm saying.
Just these motion packs. Tap away, gentlemen, tap away.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting because it's realistically when I look at everybody's different layouts that we use inside, I always get comments from laymen and people who don't really do this kind of stuff that often. When they come in, they're completely overwhelmed, and it's funny because like over the years, like you get so familiar with it, you kind of forget how much stuff you actually have. And how crazy some of it can be to an outsider, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And how far you came since the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, like this past 3 weeks really, I've been rebuilding the studio, and it's almost done. But a big part of today, actually, the vast majority of last night and today was just audio wiring. I spent a day and did all the power wiring, and I was very particular about how I put everything back. My wife kind of was freaking out, saying, you know, it took you 10 minutes to rip everything out of there, and it's taken you 3 weeks to put it back. And I'm like, well, it's not just about making it look cool; it's about making it functional and working. And so I spent a good amount of time just on how I ran power wires, so that I didn't get ground loop hum, and so that I didn't get feedback and crosstalk through my power wiring. So that was one big chore. And now I did last night and today I was doing all audio wiring. I'm almost done. Did a 48-point patch bay up in here. And I've got a bunch of sub mixes and everything going on with the Mackie mixer up top, yeah, it's funny how it used to be where, like, when I first started, yeah, sure, you would look at stuff and you could easily get distracted or overwhelmed by seeing a bunch of different things. And nowadays it's like you look at it and it's like, okay, well, everything realistically in a studio, everything kind of chunks down and breaks into single parts,
Yep.
So. Like when people look at a mixer, they always talk to me like, oh, why do you have all these knobs? And I'm like, really, it's not that many knobs. It's just chunks,
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
They all the same thing. They just repeat.
I want to share something with you guys. I found an old picture. I think it's about 10 to 15 years old. And it was kind of my very beginning studio. I'm gonna show you this. Hold on. So do you
can't see it?
You can't see it?
I don't see it. You guys see it?
No, I don't see
Big
it.
black screen.
Yeah, big black screen.
Okay,
There we
hold on.
There we are.
Okay, there we go.
You
Oh, wait.
see this?
Lost
I think
No,
this is
it went-
around.
it went in and it left.
I saw it. No, that's crazy. So you have, what's that, the S950?
Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah.
The S950 looks like key rig 49, maybe 61. I don't know what that blackboard is. 2 CRT monitors.
That black one is actually a Casio synth from the late 80s, I think. Very cheap synth, But
A Casio, you say?
What's that? Is that an Alesis rack above that 950? I can't make it out.
Looks like a
Like
950.
a Quadriverb or something, or?
No, it's the previous model, not the Octoverb. It's
Okay.
but it's MIDI verb. I think Elise's MIDI verb.
MIDI verb.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I just found it lately on in my Facebook pictures, and I thought I'm going to share it with you because it's I think it's funny. All this, like the old CRT 15-inch monitors.
Oh man, when I
your desk space.
when I find
that
those
there
pictures
sitting
that
on the
come on
desk
the
with the
website,
monitor.
Say that again, Willie?
I said you couldn't have nothing there sitting on the desk with your monitor back in the day. Our old gateway was running Fruity Loops back in the day. I am a producer, I don't get it twisted. I was running Fruity Loops. The old school one, first version.
I was never a FL guy, man. I was always on the hardware and MPC and that kind of stuff, and it was crazy because back in the day we used to have battles from guys that were on FL Studio and Logic versus guys that were using stuff like me, like hardware, Machine, MP7, ASRX, ASR10, the
I remember those.
boxes versus the boards. That's what we used to call it. But yeah, nowadays it's like if you're not doing some sort of hybrid, and if you're not using a computer in your setup in some way, then you're kind of doing it wrong. It's too powerful to deny,
It is. It is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they were doing those battles up until like 6-7 years ago. It's hard to believe how long that was.
Yeah.
What kind of battles?
Like the producer battles, MPC versus say Fruity Loops and Reason or whatever.
Oh, okay.
They give you the same sample and then say, okay, who can flip this better?
Matter of fact, let me grab this. I'm gonna show you something here. Hold on.
Or I remember the Beat Kings DVD that was big in 2006, 2007. At the end of that, and they had like the behind the scenes, and that's exactly what it was: MPC battles versus FL Studio.
Oh, okay. Were you ever a FL user, Kev?
I tried it. I couldn't get into it.
Okay.
I'm not a fan. Or I remember when back in the day, people was like, "Oh yeah, well you upgrade to Reason," which I always thought was kind of.
Check this out. So I'm gonna try and bring this up here. This is actually from a beat battle that I was in. This was, I don't know, a long time ago. This was Boxes versus the Boards beat battle.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so one of the producers in here, Sap, he went on to do Mac Miller's what is it called? Donald Trump. And
okay.
And he was a young FL Studio guy. And yeah. So and some of the other guys were on FL and on Tritons and that kind of stuff. And all of my guys, we were all on MPCs and doing gritty old school boom bap.
Wow.
It was good times.
Was that local? That was a local in your area kind of thing?
Yeah, that was I think all the producers were from the tri-state area, so like from Philly, Jersey, and Delaware.
Wow. That's dope, man.
Yeah, it was good times, man, and that was back then. That was back when we actually brought our gear. So, like for instance, when the producers that were producing on FL Studio did their beats, they actually brought their I don't even think he had a laptop. I think he brought an actual desktop computer there.
Wow.
It was like you had to bring your gear.
Yeah.
It wasn't like if you just played a CD, you got clowned.
Oh right.
Nowadays it's like
called the beat jacker.
Well, nowadays it's acceptable to be a producer and play a CD and dance on stage, which to me is silly because I remember when we used to laugh at backup dancing.
I was called DJ.
These are these battles.
What's that?
The beats beforehand.
Yeah, well, I'm saying I'm all for b-boy. Don't get it twisted. I'm all for b-boy battles too, though. The b-boy barbecue up in Philly every year. I'm there, man. So, b-boys represent, but that's not my thing. That's not what I do. I'm a producer. So, but nowadays I do more sound design. So let's roll into that topic, which would be essentially. It seems like more and more people are getting into sound design as opposed to just strictly production. And I'm actually going to pass this one off to William and kind of get some background on how you got started doing sound design and kind of how you feel it fits into the foray today.
Well, I've always been I started off as a live engineer, live mix engineer on the road with a road crew. Basically, we call roadies. But I started out behind a monitor board, and then I finally graduated to being behind the main board. And basically, when you're mixing, it's all about really blending sounds together. So as I started making beats and everything, I found myself worried more about what sounds I was going to use versus actually making the beat. So the more I started tweaking sounds and working with sounds, it was just basically a natural progression to, I enjoy actually twisting knobs on a synthesizer more than I like banging pads on my machine. So it kind of just developed into me doing more sound design than it did me making tracks. Seriously, I don't think I've made a beat except for maybe a demo of one of my expansions in over a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, making them sounds.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time actually twisting knobs and blending stuff and just working with sounds than I do actually making music.
So when you approach sound design, do you gear it towards a specific genre, or do you kind of how do you think when you initially start, when you say, okay, I want to make this sound, what are your thoughts like behind it? Are you going for a genre?
The hardest expansion I did actually was the first one. It was called Boss of the Trap. And for a person that just likes to go with the flow, it was hard to sit there and actually say, I'm going to design this towards this specific genre. I know it was a gap right then. Native Instrument wasn't really putting out too much for trap. So I was thinking to myself, it's an opportunity. So I went in and actually geared towards making trap sounds. But it's actually a whole lot harder for me to do than to actually just sit down and basically I just make sounds and then I go back, play them and say, hey, okay, this might fit into this. So then I start packing them together. Most of the time I don't know what I'm going to make. I just sit down and start twisting knobs.
Yeah, I think when I first started doing sound design on a larger scale, like to where I was putting them out and packaging them for other people, it was a natural progression because of making beats, So like it started where I was making beats all the time, nonstop, and I luckily where I'm from, we have a lot of producers that these aren't producers that are just like internet producers or guys that kind of got into it with no heartache or no money into it. It was like these are guys that like were really dedicated and been in it a long time. So I kind of came up around guys that were going into major studios and were doing a lot of hard things but I would come out with my beats, and their beats are great. My beats were my beats, and at the same time they would say, well, how did you make your drums sound like this, or how did you get that sound? And at the time it was a lot of people just sampling records and things, and I was doing a lot of other stuff like taking recorders out and sampling my own sounds and kind of I was always really big into making my own sounds, and it got to a point where people kept asking me, like, why don't you let me get some of your drums? Why don't you let me get some of your drums? That I finally had to just say, all right, listen, I'm going to start, doing it in a different way. Like, putting the stuff out that I spend all this time making for my music out for other people so that they can use it as well. Because I know that a lot of the sounds that I made, I wish they were already there. If they were already there, I would have just, bought them. I'd have scooped them up and used them. But there wasn't that stuff even available, So,
I have a question. You said you do your own sounds using recording it, okay? Mm-hmm. So, when is it really sound design compared to sampling? Because I remember a thread in the Facebook group, and it was about cartoon sounds, and one guy mentioned, yeah, if you don't find it, go do your own sounds. And the guy was like, how should I do it? And the answer was, go and sample some cartoon sounds from YouTube. You know?
Well, listen,
really...
I don't agree with that at all. I think that's theft. But at the same time, listen, I'm gonna be real clear, okay? I'm a hip hop lover. I come from a hip hop background, okay? So when I say it's theft, I say it in an endearing way, okay? Like, I'm not gonna say that, you know, when I was, you know, 18 making beats, you know, that I wasn't sampling from all kinds of different sources. Of course I was. But the difference comes in when you see certain packs up for sale for people to buy, and they are stolen sounds that they are not theirs. Now, listen, if you watch a cartoon on YouTube or on, you know, any cartoon, like Looney Tunes or whatever, you know, be it Mel Blanc's or somebody else made those sounds for that cartoon. Like, they actually went out, and so somebody did that work, okay?
Right.
So you can't sell it to someone else and claim it to be yours. That's illegal. And to me, it's far worse than a kid sampling off of YouTube or sampling off of a record, because you're selling it to somebody and they're thinking that they're paying for something that they will legitimately own, which they won't. Okay.
Right.
In that case, that's very bad. And I don't, you know, I'm not.
And let me say it's exactly the same with all these free sound packs, because I know a lot of people that think they got the sounds for free, so they're on the legit side using them in commercial projects. And I always say, no, you don't.
That's
you
correct.
never know where these sounds come from, so always make sure.
And that's something that I always try to I always try to make sure that people know, that whenever I put out sound pack, anything for sale is something 100% original. You know, I own 100% of the copyright of that. And also, if I put out free packs on my website all the time for fun, you know, and just to be nice to other people. I've put out, I think, 1 or 2 packs that were not royalty free, and I explicitly put on there that it, you know, where the sounds came from, what they were, and what they're for, which was literally just for fun, sample flip competitions, that kind of thing.
Right.
When you do that kind of thing, you have to be very, you know, upfront about it, because, you know, I don't want to see anybody get in trouble, and you know, it would be wrong to think otherwise. But to answer your direct question of the difference between sampling and sound design is when, for one, yes, you can record a good sound and it can be just a good sound recorded that way. 99% of what I record does not stay raw. Okay, so for instance, if I record, say, a sledgehammer hitting the side of a mailbox, right, and I want to use that as this snare sound, I'm going to take that sound, then I'm going to take it into my DAW, I'm going to edit it, I'm going to run it through other things possibly, I'm going to be applying EQ, compression, you know, lots of different techniques to get the sound sculpted to where I need it to be, to fit properly.
Let's make sure we make this perfectly clear. Understand that he is talking about taking a sledgehammer and hitting a mailbox. That is an original source. Not taking somebody else's drum and processing it 17,000 times until it's completely smashed and crushed, and then putting it in a sound pack and calling it yours.
Right.
Don't even do that.
Different.
I mean,
other people now, like these guys on SoundClick, you see them. They literally just take people's sounds, say, from the Urban Fires series, will say they take some of those, and they'll take some Croup drums, and then they'll take maybe a couple from Machine, put them together. Oh, this is my sound pack. Go buy it.
Well,
I'll say one way too many dudes doing this. Like, my thoughts are kind of beware of free sounds and beware of most producer packs, especially in hip hop.
As a consumer, there's a lot of things to look out for. There's some telltale signs as to whether these sounds can really be trusted. And I will say you got to be careful about those kinds of things, because even if it was a royalty-free or paid royalty sound pack that someone else then took, manipulated, and then sold, you still don't own that. You still can't use that because you never paid for the original. So if you don't have permission for the original sound source, then no, you shouldn't be using it. But there's some telltale signs. One thing that I'll tell you is easily apparent. if you see the pack and it has lots of copywritten images that you know damn well that they didn't pay for those copyright images to be
Lil
on their
Wayne
product.
on the cover.
Exactly. Yeah. If you see like Mario or something on the cover, I guarantee you they didn't pay Nintendo to have Mario. Like,
Yeah.
chances are their copyrights are not on the up and up. Like,
Right.
just some common sense things to look out for and just be careful with.
Yeah.
Common sense is not a birthright, and we all know that.
So, like,
true.
I have a question for both you. Well, really, kind of it's directed towards all of us. Okay, so there are people that use presets, and then there's guys that make their own sounds, like you and Will. I think I'm somewhere in between. Like, I like to start with like a saw wave, and then kind of just go off into my own world, and then make a track based on what I designed there. Now, I used to just use presets. I was like, oh man, I need sounds, I need to, and I would go through tons and tons of sounds until I found something that inspired me. So, like, being in between that now, I find it like sound design takes a long time. It's not, to me, like, to come up with a sound that inspires you, yeah, you can come up with something quick, but it's a long process, and especially when you get into production. When you get into producing, after you make a sound, like I make a sound, and then now it's time to make the beat. That's a long process for me. So, and that's where I'm at. I'm kind of in between. Used to use presets. I still use presets, but I like to have my own signature sound, and that's where sound design kind of comes in for me.
I love presets. I love them.
Presets are amazing.
I don't hate on presets at all. One man's preset is another man's 3-hour journey into sound. So
Yep.
I don't ever front on presets. Like,
Right.
if it sounds good, it sounds good. And there's some killer guys out there making presets right now, and I think it's wonderful to start seeing, sound designers are starting to get their just due. Like, you're starting to see in plugins and even in hardware now, you're starting to see banks by title of sound designer, which is great. Like,
Yep.
we used to never see that kind of stuff. And,
Right, it used to just be bass or piano or string or something like that. But now, like, I know Diva the plugin was one of the first ones that I actually really saw, other than the Arturia plugins, that they actually had the name of the sound designer as the bank that you could go in. Then you could go into their name, and then you would see bass and keys and pianos and leads. And
Oh, yeah, a
do
lot
that on
of
iPads now,
people
too.
that do that now. Like, I know Alchemy has it. I want to say that Synth Squad has it by Expansion. There's some other ones.
Omnisphere lists credits, but I don't know if you can actually go by the sound designer.
I know there's a special Moog library you can do it with, but I think it's just that library.
Yeah, but a lot of sound designers are actually getting just due now, which I think is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But no, like, I'll do both. I'll start from a preset when I'm making a beat, like, because I still like to make music, and I still make music for other people too. So, sometimes I'll start from a preset and sound design from there. Sometimes the preset is perfect on its own. Sometimes I want to run it through some outboard gear, But to me, there's nothing wrong with presets. Like, I try to steer away from presets that are overly used the same way that I would steer away from, a drum sample that's overly used, or a melody that's overly used, or a chord progression that's overly used. But I think that's just part of wanting to be an individual, and, also part of my personality as a whole, because I was never that kind of guy to listen to top 40 music. But, so I don't see anything wrong with that kind of thing. Mike, when you're making... Mike, I just wanted to ask Mike a question. So, when you're making beats, do you ever look for presets by sound designer, or do you not care about that at all, or do you just, like, how do you tend to go through your sounds?
No, I don't browse by sound designers, to be honest. Mostly I just pick a random preset, and I browse through all my presets, and then start off tweaking them until I like them. No, and I'm not. To be honest, I'm not familiar with sound designers. I know you two guys, and that's probably it. But what I wanna, do you guys think every producer should be a little bit more sound designer to prevent that all the music is getting boring, because I think at the moment, you know, I'm be honest, with all that new drill music, trap, and stuff like that, for me, everything sounds the same. I'm not a big fan of it.
Yep,
And
I agree.
I often have the feeling that everybody uses the same presets over and over and over. Um, of course, it's always the same drums and stuff like that. I can live with that, but even the synths now, if you listen to electronic house music, to dubstep, everything sounds so similar.
Do you think that's an aspect of genre, of people trying to conform to a genre, or do you think it's more laziness?
Laziness. People get, like, you look around and you see all the forum posts. What DST and preset that so and so use? It's all over the place. People find the same preset, same drum sounds. Like, I'm thinking like Omnisphere. People were going nuts about Omnisphere, and then when you, like, I'm finding that I've had it for like 6 months, and now I'm like, I heard that preset in a record. I hear that preset in a record, but there's like thousands of sounds in there, but I can recognize like a handful.
Right.
I know we've seen it with Contact. I've seen like Reason libraries where I'm like, man, these were on so many records. Those Sonic Reality Gold recos, I think they have them for Sample Tank too. And it's like so many records back in the day had those sounds. And I think if people kind of ventured away from being safe and took more chances and more risks, and just said, hey, you know, this sound, it's not popular, but I fuck with it. Maybe we might hear something different. People aren't trying to reinvent the wheel anymore.
Right. That's what I kind of like about modular. You know, it's like you can get real wacky and crazy and do some crazy stuff with a modular, and no one's ever going to do that. Like, no other person is ever going to come up with that patch that you made.
Or even have the same combination of modules.
Right. Right. So that's one thing. But I agree with you, Mike. I think there's a lot of the same people are using a lot of the same presets, and if they're not using presets, they're trying to figure out how can I make my sound like, you know, A or B, you know. So
that's my question. Do you guys think if people would a little bit more focus on sound design while producing beats, would this bring a wider variety of sounds in the music, or do you think it's really just because people want these sounds and nothing else?
I tell you what I would prefer. I would prefer less than them be sound designers, aside from, you know, wanting them to just buy my stuff and use that. But less than that, I'd rather want them to be more dangerous creatively, like with the song structure, song topic, you know, and as a producer, just trying to find interesting ways inside of the beat. To me, it's, you know, the sound. It's like an instrument. It's like, okay, so an electric guitarist has all these different guitar pedals that he can run through, but most of the really amazing guitar tracks out there aren't crazy effect, you know, driven. It's not about them trying to carve out this particular guitar sound. It's about how they play it, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So to me, it's about the creative execution of the song than it is about the actual sound. Even as a sound designer, I say this, you know, I love making sounds, but at the end of the day, if I'm listening to music, like, I'm really probably not sitting here like, okay, how did he make this sound? How did he make that sound? Maybe a couple of artists, but for the most part, I'm more like, does the song speak to me? Is it inspiring? Is it creatively inspiring? You know?
That's a good point. Yep. Yeah.
But is it because you know how to make the sound that you're not really worried about the actual sound that's in there? You know.
No, because there's certain people that blow my mind. No, there's certain people that blow my mind every time. I mean, like, you know, there are certain producers, less and less in hip hop, but more outside of hip hop. Like, hip hop to me is, you know, most of the sounds I could make eyes closed, and that's not putting it down, because I love hip hop, but at the same time, it's like, Like if I was doing bluegrass, I wouldn't, like you guys said, I wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel over and over again. There's a certain sound that I want to go for, you know. With
Right.
hip hop, there's certain sounds that I want to go for.
Right.
Now, unless you're like real big into like the fly low and Mad Lib stuff, and you're, you know, some guys are pushing some of those boundaries a little bit, which is really great, and I love that stuff. But when I listen to things like something like Nine Inch Nails, where they've got like how do you pronounce the name? Alessandro Cortini?
Cortini, yeah.
Yeah, he's constantly coming up with sound
Totally.
design ideas that are
Totally.
mind-boggling.
Mind-blowing. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Trent Reznor as well. Like, so there's certain artists out there that to me still like will blow my mind, and the particular sound outside of the song, the sound itself will pique my ears. And I
Totally.
think that's a great aspect of a really cool song. But if the song sucked and the sound was cool, it still would kind of like, it still would flop for me. Like, to me, the song itself is more important.
Now, I want to bring up this point, too, because somebody, when we were talking about the laziness for sounds, they sent me a message about this. And actually, I think it's a good point. That's why I want to bring it up. What was he says? He's asking about the delay of the show. He says, the topic of genre and productions and the same drums, the same samples, things, is very much a result of genre pigeonholing. Things have changed in the industry now where people are saying you have to fit in that specific genre, so you have to use these drums, these specific sounds. How much truth do you think there is in that?
I think there's a lot of truth in that, and you know, especially if you you see yourself kind of following after this other artist, so you think you kind of sound like this guy, so you want to stay in that same vein. You know, you don't want to really kind of go too far out of that. You know.
Yeah, I agree.
don't know. Yeah. What do you think, Mike?
Mike, you there? I think we lost Mike.
Can you hear
He
me?
disappeared. No,
We
he's
can hear
there.
him now.
Oh. Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you now.
Maybe he doesn't hear us. Willie, what's your thoughts on that?
It's definitely genre driven. You know, it's like it to me. I guess people need to step out a little bit more. You know, maybe like introduce some boom bap with some country. You know, I know that's like a drastic type of example, but it's like, you know, it's always going to stay the same if we always are constantly pushed to do the same thing in the genre. There's never going to be anything different if you don't start kind of clashing sounds together.
Exactly.
Let me
It's like,
ask.
I miss the fusion genres when people used to just do just crazy, weird genres that had no business together, like you said, rap and country. Or even like when they tried to do the rap metal thing, that was awesome. Like just for the fact that they were trying something so different, something so radical and new. People, and that's why I go back to before again. People don't take those chances anymore.
I mean, I wouldn't say that people don't take those chances. I would argue more that, I get real careful about what I'm about to say, because I have a lot of friends that are DJs on popular radio stations, but I gotta say, like, part of it is DJs standing up, and not just radio stations, but internet radio and whatever venue that you have. You know, a lot of it becomes like payola and just people kind of rehashing the same crap, and there's money behind it, so they push it, and then it takes a lot of effort for the creative, maybe not so easy, unsettling sounds to kind of get out to the masses, because not everybody is out there checking for new music daily, you know what I mean, or checking to find something that challenges them, you know, creatively to listen to, you know?
Right.
Right, and I think especially when you have casual fans, like when I was taking my break from the music, which we talked about before, I actually just sat back. I wasn't listening to new music. I wasn't trying to find new music. I really just became a fan again, and I found myself doing the same thing. I'm not going out looking for new artists. I'm not checking for. I'm saying, okay, what's in front of me, and that's what I'm listening to. And I think that's how most casual people who don't make music are. And I think sometimes, even to an extent, we as creators have maybe too much of an expectation for people to just say, oh, well, if there's no good music in front of you, go find it. Because we have that passion, so we're going to go find it, and a lot of people don't have that same passion. That they just want to listen to something they think sounds nice.
I worry about the not just, it's not an issue just with producers, by the way. Like, this is an issue with songwriters and artists, you
Songs as a
know,
whole.
especially. Because a lot of the times you'll have producers wanting to push boundaries, and then artists only want specific styles of tracks. And that can be a real problem too when you see people pushing sounds as a, you know, like you'll see a ton of YouTube videos that, you know, this is a XYZ style beat, and it's like, well, if it's that style beat, then you're a biter. Like, back off. Like, to me,
fighting is the shit now.
From a hip hop standpoint, like, if I ever went to, like, my friends back in the day and I was like, yo, check out this beat I did, it sounds like something Said G would do, or, you know, this sounds like Ali Shah, you know, Muhammad, and, you know, if I did that, if I said, hey, look, here's my RZA style beat, people would clown me. They'd be like, why are you trying to sound like another producer? And nowadays, that seems to be the expected path. Like, okay, you know, I'm going to try to make my beat sound like Lex Luger, or I'm going to try to make my beat sound like, you know, anybody else. And I'm just like, come on, man. Like, to me, if you do that...
Is that the producer's fault or the artist's fault? Because it's all about the mighty dollar nowadays. And artists, all these artists on the internet, all they want to do is make it big. So, of course, as producers, if you want to eat, you got to make the style of music that these artists want.
There's a truth to that. There's a truth to that, too.
Yeah, and there's a to me, there's a major difference between selling sounds to people and selling beats to people. Like, to me, beat selling is horrible for the hip-hop industry as a whole with the advent of internet beat sales. Because it used to be where you would have, or let's take Gangstar, for instance, okay? You know, actually, you could take all the great hip-hop groups, right? And it would be a single producer working with a single set of MCs, you know? And they would work on the track, not just alone, but it would be a creative combined effort, you know, where, you know, people would work together on the music. Even, you know, the artist having input on the beat and vice versa. And nowadays you lose a lot of that, and it turns hip-hop almost into like a glorified karaoke. And that to me is a major problem, because you lose a huge chunk of the creative aspect if the only way you're getting beats is by buying them online from somebody you've never really met and haven't vibed with. And on top of that, you might be a garbage rapper, and the dude's just trying to sell you a beat. Now, if you were, you know...
Exactly. That's why I never sold a beat in my entire life, because I don't want whack rappers on my beats. You know,
I'm not gonna lie, when I do that, I go under a totally different name. Like when I sell a beat to a whack rapper, I'm not gonna lie, I've done it, and I change the name. Like, I say, don't put my name on here. This is the name I want you to use, and I don't want my name attached to it at all.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know, and sometimes I'll even tell them that I think they need to work on their stuff. Like, but I haven't been opposed to doing that in a club either. So.
But I really think that's a part of the problem why everybody sounds the same, because they want to sell their stuff. They don't have the intention to make music because they want to make music. Nowadays, so many guys, if you read my YouTube comments, stuff like that, it's like, dude, where can I sell my beats? You know, I'm doing beats for 3 months now. Where can I sell them? That's all the wrong, dude. And that's so terribly wrong.
Actually, I ran into a guy just the other day, and this was a serious throwback. I ran into a guy the other day at a Wawa. If you're from you know the Philly area and Delaware, you know what a Wawa is. But I was at a Wawa. Dude was running around, passing out hard copy CDs he had pressed up.
Wow.
Nobody wants
I never see that anymore. It used to be rampant back in the day. I can't tell you how many mixtapes I would step on going into a club, and now it's like you never see somebody doing that. So I actually took the time to take it and actually listen to it because it's so rare these days. Like I thought to myself, man, like you don't ever see this anymore. Now it's like people don't do that.
Yeah, because they do it on.
Come on.
They do it on the internet now. They spam. They spam your Facebook group. That's how they do it now.
I see what you did there. And they get mad when they get banned.
And that reminds me of, every time I see people spamming Facebook groups, especially when people spam their music on a group full of people who make music, I'm like, dude, you're selling ice to Eskimos. I'm sorry that's politically incorrect, whatever.
Exactly.
Like,
yep.
Trying to sell sex to
you're
a
really
it don't work.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, come on, man. Like, you gotta, like, if you really want to do that, there are Facebook groups for nothing but MCs. Go to those groups and post your tracks. Don't do it in a producer's group.
I've always questioned that too. Like, they're trying, and then they say, "Oh, I can't sell beats. I get thousands of hits on my SoundClick or SoundCloud, but the only people listening are other producers. They're not there to buy it. Or even better, I found my way onto mailing lists for other producers. Like, why are you emailing me your beats? And I told one dude just to make him think about it. I'm gonna sell it. I told him just like that. I said, I'm gonna sell it or I'm gonna distribute it on YouTube or something. He flipped the hell out. But it was hilarious. So, like, stop trying to sell your beats to other producers, you dummy.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Like, that's absolutely
Marketing 101. Find your audience.
Yeah, that's it, Kev. Right there. Yep.
And a producer's Facebook group that's all producers is not your market.
It's not, man.
I think one interesting thing about the way that the market is right now is that I see a lot of people getting into producing now that, not even just hip hop now. It's actually spread out to other genres. It definitely started with hip hop, but I'll see people making music and locally trying to quote collaborate with another artist and up front talking to them about the deal. Before they ever make anything, before they even try to vibe together, before they do anything, they're up front trying to talk about money. And I'm like,
well,
that's not a collaboration. You're trying to sell a service. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, and don't expect it to be an artistic endeavor if you're going to treat it like that.
Gosh.
There's a very big difference,
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
And it's okay if you want to do it nothing but for the business, but you have to understand, if you get into music for nothing but the business, you are going to be the brokest cat I know.
Yep.
Don't ever do anything in life just for the money.
Good point.
Good point. Took me a long time to learn, especially something with like art. You're going to be miserable. You're not going to enjoy what you're doing. You're not going to be happy with it. Like, even like with this YouTube thing, I have people come to me all the time, and they're like, "You have 2,300 subs on YouTube," which to me isn't a big deal. Because I watch a lot of gaming channels where people have like 2,500 for, just going back and forth with each other. And so I look at my 2,300, I'm like, I have nothing. I look at, say, Joe, I'm like, man, I have nothing.
Yeah.
And the one thing I tell them when they come to me about this, don't do it for the money. If you get the money, cool, don't do it for the money. Do it because it's something you want to do. Do it so it's something you enjoy to do. And music is the same way. If you enjoy making the music, you're going to make a lot of it. People are going to like it, and eventually you're going to make some money.
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy doing it, then it's not going to happen.
But see, that's the same with sound design. When you're sitting there doing sound design, you can't do sound design if you really and truly do not love to sit there and listen to the manipulation of anything.
Yeah,
exactly. So there are producers and there are sound designers. And I have a big irritation when I'm off in the group and somebody asks about what's the hottest pack and somebody just totally discouraged them. Why don't you make your own? Why don't you make your own? And it's like, well...
It's not for everybody.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. Nobody wants... I'm going to tell you, some people do not want to sit there. I have a video I did on YouTube. It's 20 minutes worth of me taking a buzzing saw sound and turning it into a string.
We're nerds.
78 views on it. Nobody wants to do it.
You know what I mean? Like it's not cool. Like, but I will sit in here, from beginning of the morning till late at night, just all you hear in my studio is a racket. You know what I mean? It's not music by any stretch of the imagination.
Exactly.
And yeah,
It's
like,
funny.
you know,
I'm one of those guys Willie described, actually. They used to
and
do
there's
that.
nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with
Oh,
that. You know,
one of the dudes that said, "Go make your own sounds." I used to be one of them dudes.
I'll tell you right now, like it's the same argument as like, you know, should somebody use a loop versus a chopped up loop versus their own sound? Listen,
Exactly.
not everything is for everyone. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like to me, I'm like, dude, some people are dope with loops. Listen to MF Doom, he's dope with loops. You know what I mean? Then go listen to Prefuse 73. He's dope with chops. Like
Exactly.
there's different ways of going about it, and there is no single right way. And just because, you know, X person likes to use, you know, this particular piano sound that comes inside of a, you know, a Triton or comes inside a Contact or whatever, and doesn't want to tweak it, doesn't make it wrong. If he can make a great song with it, dude, do it. You know what I mean? Because to me, that's fine. But it's like Mike said, you know, if they're doing it just to sound like someone else, then that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, there's a big difference between not wanting to be a sound designer and just make music and just wanting to sound like someone else. You know,
that's true, but do you think that, because I remember, I think we all been at this point, especially when you first started out, there's that producer you loved. Like, for me, I love Jay-Z's The Blueprint album. That's the album that made me say, okay, I want to make beats. So for a while, I was trying to sound like Kanye, and I was trying to sound like Just Blaze. And that was when I first started out.
Right.
I don't think there's any
love the Neptunes, and I was trying to sound like the Neptunes.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with getting inspiration. You know, we all get inspired by 1,000 artists. My drums still sound dirty like RZA did it on the first Wu-Tang album, because that was such a huge impact in for my ears. You know, when I first heard this album, I still love the sound of this, and I'm still tending to do it a little bit that way, but I would never try to copy sounds RZA used like 20 years ago.
I totally agree. Like, I mean, you're gonna draw inspiration and aspire to reach levels, you know, to where you can be as original as these people. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're gonna draw inspiration of those sounds from those things. Just like Mike said, like RZA was a huge inspiration to me when I first started. You know, so a lot of my drums have this heavy boom bap. Like, the first record I can remember that ever really grabbed me was BDP. So it's like, you know, a lot of my drums tend to have a really hard smacking sound, and you know, part of that is because that's what I'm you know, that's what I came up on. That's what I love. So yeah, you want to aspire to be like somebody, but you don't want to rip off someone. There's a big difference. You know,
a lot of people there aren't, and I think that's kind of the point I was getting at. It's like, at what point do you break free and say, okay, I'm gonna do me? And I think a lot of people have trouble with that.
I think what ends up being you is these little bits of inspiration you get over years that total up to your kind of individual sound. Like, you know, you might have gotten this, you know, the boom bap kind of feel you like from BDP, and then that develops into something else, and then all of a sudden you hear a synth sound over here, and you're like, oh, wow, I like that. And then, you know, these little bits of inspiration all total up to your sound eventually, you know. And it's like, it's kind of like Mike said, you know, you're not trying to reproduce anybody's sound, but there's something in their sound that kind of sticks with you. So you're like, man, I like my drums to hit hard, you know. I like that RZA sound, but you don't necessarily try to replicate exactly what RZA does, but in the back of your mind somewhere there's that little bit of inspiration that helps you kind of shape your own sound, and those add up over time, and I think that is what ends up being, you know, you. And I think when you first start, you mainly want to sound like, it might be one person, you know, you're just like, oh, I got to get my stuff sounding like that, you know, and you constantly, you know, trying to emulate one person, you know.
Oh, I got a message here from my boy David. Peace out to David, and he has a really good point. He has a good question. He's asking if it might be the fault of all these tutorials you have today, all the easy access, because you have like 1,000 sites that tell you exactly how to create a Skrillex sound or something like that.
I think that's.
Let me answer this real quick, because it's nothing wrong with these tutorials, and they're great resources if you want to learn how to create a synth sound, but that not necessarily means that you always have to copy these sounds and do nothing else with it.
To quote Third Base, it's a product of the environment.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like if people are wanting it, you're gonna see it. You know, that's what it is. And at the same time, yeah, like it used to be you had to come up with your own way because nobody wanted to share what they had. And nowadays it's not like that. Nowadays
it's too much sharing.
Well, I don't think there's too much sharing. What I think there is you know, people need to grow a pair, and just if you're making sounds and if you see a tutorial, if you're interested and you say, okay, I want to make this wobble bass like Skrillex, right? At some point, you have to learn how to do that, and then you have to say to yourself, okay, now that I've learned how to do that, how can I make it mine?
Yeah, where can I take it? Where can I take this now? Yeah.
Yeah, don't just stop there. If you just stop there, you know, that's not getting you anywhere. You know,
exactly. And that's why a lot of producers get bored, because they get stuck in one place and they don't know how to get out of that rut.
And I've posted videos making beats where I do it from scratch, and you know, I remember there was a large fad for a while of guys like Hitmakers and or who was it, Heatmakers?
Yeah, the Heatmakers.
They were putting up like those 15-minute beat videos and stuff like that,
yeah.
And I was always like laughing at that because for one, I could tell that they were already preset up, and for two, like if you're making a beat in 15 minutes, you're not trying hard enough. unless you're doing it for like an advertisement and you're on a deadline and you need to get it out quick. If you're only spending 15 minutes on your beat, chances are, you know, you're doing it wrong. But
I don't know. I've made some beats that people thought were amazing.
A completed song? Please.
Not a completed song, no. I'm saying I can get the rough ideas. I get the rough ideas down and then work on arrangements in under 30 minutes now.
I would say that when I make a beat, like on average, it's going to be like the skeleton of the beat might be there in 15 minutes, but the actual fleshed out beat is going to be probably a 2-hour process. You know, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people that they just want the wham bam, thank you ma'am kind of action. They just think that, okay, well, I'm going to hop on here, I'm going to make this beat and it's going to be done. And then you go back and you listen to it and it's, you know, there's no change ups, there's no variation in the drums. You know, it's basically very simple stuff and it doesn't really go anywhere. There's no emotion being conveyed through the track because it just stays in one place. And it's like, well, you might have made a beat, but did you make a song? And that's the same question when it comes to sounds. You know, you might have made a sound like somebody else, but did you make something that was yours, you know?
And most people not only don't do it, they can't do it. I find most people aren't willing to learn what ADSR really does.
Exactly.
Something as basic as ADSR. And
what filter does.
And I've seen entire sample packs of 808
Do you think that's
kicks.
an amateur thing, or are you talking about people who've been doing it a while and just kind of don't care?
Both. I see it with both. Like I remember I had a conversation on YouTube with a guy in a private message for about 2 weeks trying to explain to him, because he was trying to figure out what decay actually did, because he had like a whole folder of the same 808 kick drum. And the only difference between each sound was they had a little more decay. I kid you not. And he was trying to ask me questions about this, whatever. I'm like, man, I have a video showing how to make 808 kicks, and I say on any synth that I use, one of the synths in Reason, I apply this to any synth you have, and just play with that amp decay.
And so I think that's what the problem is. You know, they go and watch the tutorials, and it'll be a massive tutorial or a Synth 1 tutorial, and they don't know how to actually take that tutorial and know what they did and change it over to a different system. So, you know, people really need. Now, I'm not discouraging learning the basics of synthesis. I think everybody should learn that. So it doesn't matter what you use. When it comes to a synthesizer, if you know the basics, you can figure your way out around it.
I do that in most of my videos.
Synths have different modulation routings and all kind of different things. You know, I know Bryce and Ken, both of y'all work with the modulars, and you can do pretty much whatever you want. But if you know the basics of synthesis, you can figure everything else out.
Right. If you know basic analog synthesis, you can jump on almost any other synthesizer out there.
The other thing is that the synthesis basics don't apply only to synthesizers. Synthesis is a much larger topic, and it applies to using your EQs, your compressors. Like, these things translate to everything else that you're doing in the production world. So to me, it's kind of like, if you don't learn these things, you're only hurting, you're only hurting yourself.
Oh yeah, but you have so many people that argue against that. Like, it's insanity.
Well,
I just got a message from Ed Washier. He said it's good to hear a lot of like-mindedness. The majority of what's being said fits right into my own views on the subject, so just wanted to let you guys know.
The other thing that I wonder about is when I'm seeing people that are primarily beat makers or bedroom producers especially, and they want to get into sound design, then I see them starting to do things like trying to take VSTs and more importantly is I see people trying to use sample-based plugins and then sound design with them, and that's a bad thing to do.
You don't own those samples, homie.
Exactly. Just because
you get sued.
Now, you could buy Contact, right? And you could use that Contact in a song, and that's fine. But if you use it for making a sound production, a sound design library, not the same copyright, not the same rules apply, and you have to be very careful about that. So I try to tell people, like when people say, "Oh, you don't need all this gear," blah blah blah, and I'm saying, "Well, no, you don't need all this gear.
Exactly.
I need all this gear. You don't need all this gear. Don't tell me what
I can't be sued for using hardware."
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and everybody's different.
For using hardware. If I make something on either one of these hardware synths I got right here, I ain't worried about the EULA.
Yep.
A lot of people don't understand that a lot of these softwares, they have what's called a end user license. The EULA. And if you're not reading that, you don't know that you can get in some tremendous amount of trouble by using these sample-based synths to try to put out your own sound packs.
That's right.
You cannot record that source. So people need to be careful when they try to jump into this.
Now, and the other thing is just like making like if you're making music, same rules apply. Where some people enjoy different workflows. Yes, you can use virtual analog based synthesis and things like that are inside of your computer. Some of us enjoy being more hands-on. Some of us enjoy external sound sources, that kind of thing. So I don't poo-poo on anybody who wants to have their own workflow or whatever. But when I see people saying, "Oh, you don't need this, you don't need that," that's right. You might not need it, but to me, I'm way faster and way more creative when I can grab this cutoff knob and just turn it. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's worth every penny right there. I've got 6 filters that I can jump to right there. You know what I mean? Like.
And not only that, I think that's actually part of what makes us all unique as producers. Like, I actually wish piracy wasn't so rampant, because I think we wouldn't see so many people using the same presets if it wasn't so rampant, because you see everybody had their own sound libraries. It's like back in the day, you had your crate of records. You had your records, and nobody else had them records, and it was part of what made you unique. Now everybody has the same synthesizers, they have the same samplers, same samples. It makes a setup like yours, Ken, or like Will's, or like Bryce's, really appealing, because nobody's going to go out and spend, what you got there, about $12,000 worth of synths, Ken?
I refuse to answer that question.
but that's kind of my point. Nobody else is going to have that collection just like yours, especially with the modulars where you're buying it piece by piece. Nobody has that setup. Versus you look at Willie's, completely different. Yeah, and it's unique to him. Yeah, I can't even make out all them synths. Only thing I recognize there, I think that's one of the arias.
Yeah.
And then I forget the Akai deal with the iPad. I forget what it's called.
I recognize them all.
Well, we know you do. You're a centaur. But that's kind of my point. Versus, like, see me, I prefer working in the box. You know, and truth be told, I use Complete, I use Omnisphere, and I use Trillion and Machine. And I understand that, you know, because I use these, everybody probably has every sound that I have, especially
Yeah.
because of the rampant piracy.
So let me ask you guys a question. As fans of music, when you're listening to whatever you're listening to, does it even cross your mind what they used anymore? Or
No.
like, because I remember when I was a lot younger, that kind of used to. I was a real big junkie on like, okay, what sampler was used on this song, and you know that kind of thing. But like, I'm also a nerd, so to me that can't be normal for the average user or average listener, and probably not even for the average beat maker. You know, so
I still, especially when I see something in the videos, if they use a certain synth for a sound, so I still want to have stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to buy it, but in the moment I watch it and I like the sound, I was like, yeah, I need this synth. It sounds so good.
Mm-hmm.
But
you know, I think we all have been there at one point or another. But I think for me, I found myself with how I want to work. You know, I found my set of tools, and I really, truthfully, I might add little things here, change it up here and there. I don't want nothing else. Like, everything that I want to do, I can do with what I have. And I've been there for a while.
I'm a gear junkie. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't even have to hear it on the record. If I see it advertised, I'm probably gonna want it. You know? I just like gear, you know, and that's just me. I want it. I don't care. I don't care if nobody else used it. If I see it in
prefer
the
it that
demo,
way.
I want it.
Well, there's the one guy who had banned in the box because it was advertised.
I will tell you one thing.
Had a unique synthesizer.
I find myself oftentimes, like I've always been a big reader of liner notes, and I do find myself still like going back through my old records and like saying, okay, well, what was used on this record, and where can I? How much was it then? How much can I get it for today? You know what I mean? Like, I could rant off a listing of just about any synth that you can think of, and tell you what its current day eBay value is.
Dang.
Like
nerdism at its finest.
Yeah, but you know what? That's like, again, that's not. I wouldn't expect like an average producer to be doing that. See, look, his modular has a mind of its own. Like, he doesn't even have to make
I was like,
Windows
whoa.
8 modular.
But no, like to me, that stuff is like, oh man, more gear, please. I do try to steer away from the just because it's new, I have to have it scenario. Like, I saw the new Pro 2 from DSI, and I also saw the new modular filter that he's got coming out. And as much as I want it, I find myself saying, you know what, you need to calm down, Flux, calm down.
Reel it in, baby.
I still want it, but calm down.
I ain't calming down. I'm gonna get it.
It's not about am I going to get it, it's when am I going to get it.
But yeah, there is that. When can I get it for a deal? I'm a deal too. So, but yeah, man, I don't know. I think on that note, say it's probably a good point to close up the show.
I think so.
So I want to say thank you to all the viewers and everybody who's a member of the Producers Hangout Facebook group. We've been having a lot of discussions in there. There's been heated debates. There's been, good times. There's been all kinds of interesting stuff going on in there. So I invite you, if you're not a member of the Facebook group, the Producers Hangout, come on in. It's not a place to spam your music. And yes, we are very anal about that. Yeah, we can be jerks about it, and we're not ashamed to be jerks about it. Because
ban you for no reason from a ban.
It is. So let's try to remember that and try to post things that are inspiring to other users and promote good discussion.
Definitely.
I want to say peace from fluxwithit.com. I'm going to pass it off to Bryce.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Peace. Till next time. Off to Kev.
All right, you guys have a good day. And like I said, if you post your music in there, Bryce will ban you. Sometimes he'll just ban you for no reason, so be careful of that. And also, I finally put out my EP. I put it out about a week ago on my SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/KevWestBeat. So go ahead and check it out. It is a fully electronic EP, the one I've been talking about putting out for months. I finally put it out. So go check it out. I'll pass it off to Mike.
All right. Thanks for watching. And for all the guys in the Facebook group, check out the pin post. We still have the 50% off for that great plugin from Plugin Boutique. We need a few more members to make this deal happen, and we also are about to do a little beat making contest, which starts next week, and you can win some cool sound packs from modeaudio.com. And, oh yeah, one word. If somebody from Moog is watching this show, please stop watching the show and go and get my synth done. I want it.
Hold on, let me help you.
Don't waste your time watching this show. Get your work done, guys.
Let me help you out, Mike. Let me help you out, Mike, and just say this. We won't say Moog correctly until you get him his synth. So it'll be Moog until you get him his synth. All right, off to Will.
Hey, yo, it was fun. First time on the show, man. Had a great time. Appreciate it.
I'm just happy we were able to understand him with his southern drawl.
All
right, everybody. Listen, thanks for joining us, and come and check us out during our next show. Peace.
Peace.
Later.